And now Silenian Hermes began to summon the souls of the suitors from the palace, holding in his hand the splendid gold wand that he can use at will to cast a spell on men's eyes or wake them from sleep. He marshalled and led them with this, and they obeyed his summons, squeaking as bats squeak when they flutter around after one of them falls from the cluster in which they hang upside down from the rocky roof in the depth of some mysterious cave. With such squeaking the ghosts journeyed on together, following Hermes the Deliverer down the dark paths of decay. Past Ocean Stream, past the White Rock, past the gates of the sun, and the region of dreams they went, and before long they reached the meadow of Asphodel, which is the dwelling place of souls, the disembodied wraiths of men. Here they encountered the souls of Peleus' son Achilles, of Patroclus, of the handsome Antilochus, and of Ajax, who in stature and in manly grace was second to none of the Danaans except the peerless son of Peleus. These were gathered around Achilles' soul, and now there came near them the soul of Agamemnon, Atreus' son, who came to them plunged in grief and surrounded by the souls of all that met their doom and died with him in Aegisthus' house. Achilles' soul addressed him first.
Agamemnon, we used to think of you, among all our princes, as the lifelong favourite of Zeus the Thunder Lover, because of the size and bravery of the army you commanded in the land of Troy when we Achaeans suffered so much. But you too were to be visited in your prime by that deadly fate which no man born can evade. How I wish you could have met your doom and died at Troy in the full enjoyment of the honour due to you as our leader. For then the whole nation would have joined in building you a mound, and you would have left a great name for your son to inherit. But instead you were doomed to die a pitiable death.
Hello, Mango.
Son of Peleus, godlike Achilles,
The soul of Atreus' son replied,
happy man to have died in the land of Troy, far away from Argos. There the flower of the Trojan and the Achaean forces fell around you in the battle for your body. Mighty you lay in swirl of dust, a mighty corpse, all your horsemanship forgotten. And the whole day long we fought. Indeed, we never would have ceased had Zeus not stopped us with a storm. Then we carried you off from the battlefield to the ships, cleansed your fair flesh with warm water and unguents,
Unguents?
and laid you on a bed. Your countrymen gathered round you, shedding hot tears and cutting their hair. Your mother, when she heard the tidings, came up from the sea with the immortal sea nymphs, and a mysterious cry came over the waters. All the Achaeans were seized by panic and would have leaped up and fled on to the ships, but for one man, Nestor, rich in ancient wisdom. It was not for the first time that his wise counsels had prevailed. With their best interests at heart he addressed them, calling out, "Halt, Argives! Achaeans, stand your ground! This is Achilles' mother, who has come out of the sea with her immortal sea nymphs to be with her dead son." At this the brave Achaeans checked their flight. The daughters of the old sea god stood round you with bitter lamentations and wrapped your body in an imperishable shroud. The 9 muses chanted your dirge in sweet antiphony, and you would not have seen a single Argive without tears in his eyes. Such was the clear-voiced muse's songs. For 17 days and 17 nights we mourned for you, immortal gods and mortal men alike. And on the 18th day we committed you to the flames with a rich sacrifice of fatted sheep and crooked-horned cattle round you. You were burnt in the clothing of the gods, with lavish
Unguents.
and sweet honey, and Achaean heroes in full armour, infantry and charioteers, moved in procession round the pyre where your body was burning, and filled the air with sound. when the Hephaestian flames had consumed your body, we gathered your white bones at dawn, Achilles, and steeped them in unmixed wine and oil. Your mother gave us a golden urn, a gift, she said, from Dionysus, made by the great Hephaestus. In this your white bones lie, my illustrious Achilles, and mingled with them the bones of Menoetius' son, Patroclus, dead before you, but separate from those of Antilochus, who next to Patroclus was your closest friend. Over their bones we soldiers of the mighty Argive force built up a great and glorious mound, on a foreland jutting out over the broad waters of the Hellespont, so that it might be seen far out at sea by the men of today and future ages. Then, in the middle of the arena where the Achaean champions were to test their skill, your mother placed the magnificent prizes she had asked the gods to give. You have attended the funerals of many heroes, when the young men strip and make ready for the games in honour of their dead king. But if you had seen the splendid prizes offered in your honour by the divine silver-footed Thetis, you would have marvelled at them, as the most wonderful you had ever seen, for the gods loved you very dearly. So even death, Achilles, did not destroy your name, and your great glory will last forever among all mankind. But after I had brought the war to a close, what satisfaction was there for me? For on my journey home Zeus planned a miserable end for me at the hands of Aegisthus and my accursed wife.
So they talked together, and Hermes the giant killer approached, ushering into the world below the ghosts of the suitors whom Odysseus had killed. Astonished at the sight, the pair moved quickly toward them, and the soul of Agamemnon, Atreus' son, recognized the famous Amphimedon, Melanius' son, who had entertained him in his home in Ithaca. The soul of Atreus' son was the first to speak.
Amphimedon,
he said,
what catastrophe has brought you all down into the land of darkness, all chosen men, and all of the same age? Someone choosing a city's best would have selected men like these. Did Poseidon raise tempestuous winds and surging waves, and overwhelm you and your ships? Or did enemies strike you down as you were rounding up their cattle and their flocks, or as they were defending their town and women? Tell me, for you and I have been host and guest. Don't you remember the time when I came over to your house in Ithaca with godlike Menelaus to persuade Odysseus to join forces with me and sail against Ilium? It was a full month before we completed our voyage over the wide sea, so hard was it to win over Odysseus, sacker of cities. Most noble son of Atreus, Agamemnon, lord of men,
the soul of Amphimedon replied.
I well remember all that you speak of, favourite of Zeus, and I will give you a full and honest account of our tragic end, and the manner of our death. In the prolonged absence of Odysseus, we began to court his wife. She refused to give an absolute no or an absolute yes to a marriage, which was so distasteful to her. But scheming instead to bring about our downfall and our death, she devised this trick. On her loom in her house, she set up a great web and began weaving a large, delicate piece of work. Then she said to us, My lords, my suitors, now that noble Odysseus is dead, restrain your ardour. Do not urge on this marriage till I have done this work, so that the threads I have spun may not be altogether wasted. It is a shroud for Lord Laertes, when he succumbs to the dread hand of remorseless death that stretches all men out at last. I must not risk the scandal there would be among my countrywomen here, if one who had amassed such wealth were laid to rest without a shroud. That is what she said, and we magnanimously consented. So by day she used to weave at the great web, but every night had torches set beside it and undid the work. For 3 years she took us in by this stratagem. A fourth began, and the seasons were slipping by, when one of her women, who knew all about it, gave her mistress away. We caught her unravelling her beautiful work, and she was forced, reluctantly, to complete it. But no sooner had she woven the great web, laundered the robe, and shown it to us gleaming like the sun or moon, than some evil god landed Odysseus out of the blue in a distant corner of his estate, where the swineherd had his hut. Noble Odysseus' son, just back from sandy Pylos in his black ship, made for the same place. The two of them plotted our assassination and made their way to the famous city of Ithaca, or rather, Telemachus went first, and Odysseus followed later. The swineherd brought him down disguised in rags, and looking like a wretched old beggar as he hobbled along with his staff. In the miserable clothes he was wearing, none of us, not even the older members, realized that this was Odysseus when he suddenly appeared among us. In fact, we abused and insulted him, and threw things at his head. For the moment he put up patiently with the abuse and the blows in his own palace. But when the will of Zeus, lord of the Aegis, stirred him, with Telemachus' help, he removed the excellent weapons they possessed and stowed them in the storeroom, and bolted the doors. Then, in his cunning, he persuaded his wife to set out in front of the doomed suitors a bow and some grey iron axes, to be a test of our prowess and the instruments of our death. Not one of us could string the mighty weapon, we were far too weak. But when it came to handing the great bow to Odysseus, we all protested loudly that he should not have it, however much he argued. Telemachus was the only one who encouraged him and told him to take it, and so the patient, good Odysseus got his hands on the bow, which he strung without effort, and shot through the iron rings. Then he leapt onto the threshold, and with murder in his eyes, tipped out his swift arrows, and shot Lord Antinous, after which, aiming carefully, he shot at the rest of us with his deadly shafts. We fell thick and fast, and it was obvious that some god was on their side, for in their fury they charged through the hall and hacked us down right and left. As heads were smashed, ghastly screams filled the halls, and the whole floor ran with blood. That, Agamemnon, is how we were destroyed, and our corpses still lie uncared for in Odysseus' palace, as the news has not yet reached our homes and brought our friends to wash the dark blood from our wounds, to lay our bodies out and mourn for us, as is a dead man's right.
Son of Laertes, shrewd Odysseus,
The soul of Agamemnon, son of Atreus, cried,
you are a fortunate man to have won a wife of such preeminent virtue. How faithful was your flawless Penelope, Icarius' daughter. How loyally she kept the memory of the husband of her youth. The glory of her virtue will not fade with the years, but the deathless gods themselves will make a beautiful song for mortal ears in honour of the constant Penelope. What a contrast with Clytemnestra, the daughter of Tyndareus, and the infamy she sank to when she killed me, the husband of her youth. The song men will sing of her will be one of detestation. She has destroyed the reputation of her whole sex.
Fuck you, Agamemnon.
Virtuous women and all.
Those were the words that passed between them as they stood in Hades' halls, under the secret places of the earth. Odysseus and his party left the town behind, and before long had reached the rich and well-run farmlands of Laertes, which he had reclaimed from their natural state by his own exertions long ago. Here was his cottage, surrounded by outbuildings, where the serfs that laboured for him had their meals and sat and slept. An old Sicilian woman lived in the cottage, devoting all her care to the old man's comfort on his farm, far from the town. When they reached the place, Odysseus said to his son and his servants,
Go into the main building now, and straightway kill the best pig you can find for our midday meal. Meanwhile, I shall test my father to find out whether he will know me when he sees me, or fail to recognize me after so long an absence.
As he spoke, he handed his armour to the servants, who then went straight into the house, and Odysseus moved off towards the luxuriant vineyard on his quest. As he made his way down into the great orchard, He did not see Dolius or any of the serfs or Dolius's sons, who had all gone with the old man at their head to gather stones for the vineyard wall. He found his father alone on the vineyard terrace, hoeing round a tree. He was wearing a filthy, patched and shabby tunic, a pair of stitched cowhide leggings strapped round his shins to protect them from scratches, and gloves to save his hands from the brambles. There he stood, with a hat of goatskin on his head to emphasize his grief. When the patient, good Odysseus saw how old and worn his father looked, and realized the depth of his misery, he halted under a tall pear tree, and the tears came to his eyes. He deliberated in his heart and mind whether to hug and kiss his father and tell him the whole story of his own return home to his native land, or first to question him and thoroughly test him. Upon reflection, he thought it better to start by testing him with words that would rouse him. With this purpose in mind, the good Odysseus went straight up to his father. Laertes was still hoeing round the tree with his head down, as his illustrious son came up and spoke to him.
Old man, you keep everything so well tended here that I can see there is little about gardening that you do not know. There is nothing, not a green thing in the whole enclosure, not a fig, olive, vine, pear, or bed that is not carefully looked after. But I cannot help remarking, and please don't take offence, that you don't look after yourself very well. In fact, what with your unkempt appearance and your shabby clothes, old age has hit you very hard. But it can't be on account of any laziness that your master fails to look after you, nor is there anything in your build and size to suggest the slave. You look more like a man of royal blood, the sort of person who sleeps on a soft bed when he has had his bath and dined. This is how the old should be treated. However, tell me the truth. Whose serf are you, and whose is this garden you look after? And tell me honestly, I need to be sure. Am I really in Ithaca? A fellow I met on my way up here just now assured me that I was, but he was not very obliging. He couldn't be bothered to answer me properly or listen to what I said when I mentioned a friend of mine and asked whether he was still in the land of the living or dead and gone to Hades' halls. Listen, I'll tell you about him. Some time ago in my own country, I was host to a man who arrived at our house and proved the most attractive visitor I have ever entertained from abroad. He said he was an Ithacan, and that Arceisius' son Laertes was his father. I took him in, made him thoroughly welcome, and gave him every comfort that my rich house could offer, including presents worthy of his rank. 7 talents of wrought gold he had from me, a solid silver wine bowl with a floral design, 12 single-fold cloaks, 12 rugs, 12 splendid robes, and 12 tunics. And besides all this, 4 women, skilled in fine handicraft and good-looking. I let him choose them himself.
Sir,
Said his father, with tears on his cheeks.
yes, you have come to the land you're seeking, but it's in the hands of violent and evil men. The gifts you lavish on your friend were given in vain, though had you found him alive in Ithaca, he would have sent you on your way with an ample return in presents and hospitality, as is right when such an example has been set. But please tell me exactly how long ago it was that you were host to that unfortunate man, my unhappy son, if I ever had one, who, far from friends and home, has been devoured by fishes in the sea, or fallen a prey maybe to the wild beasts and birds on the land. His mother and I, we two who brought him into the world, had no chance to wrap his body up and lament over him, nor had his richly dowered wife, constant Penelope, the chance to close his eyes and mourn him on his deathbed, the tributes due to the dead. But tell me about yourself. I'm curious. Who are you, sir? And where do you come from? What is your native town, and who are your parents? And where is she moored? The good ship that brought you here with your gallant crew? Or were you travelling as a passenger on someone else's ship, which landed you and sailed away?
I will tell you all you wish to know,
said the subtle Odysseus. Why don't you just tell your dad who you are? He's already suffered enough.
I come from Alibas. My home is the palace there, for my father is King Aphaedes, Polypaemon's son. My own name is Eperitus. I sailed from Sicania, but some god drove me here against my will, and my ship is anchored opposite open country some way from the town. As for Odysseus, it is 5 years since he bade me farewell and left my country. Ill-fated man. And yet the omens when he left were good. Birds on the right, which pleased me as I said goodbye, and pleased him as he started out. We both had every hope that we should meet again as host and guest, and give each other splendid gifts.
When Laertes heard this, a black cloud of misery enveloped him. Groaning heavily, he picked up the black dust in both his hands and poured it over his grey head. Odysseus's heart was touched, and suddenly, as he watched his dear father, a sharp spasm of pain shot through his nostrils. He rushed forward, flung his arms round his neck and kissed him.
Father,
he cried,
here I am, the very man you asked about, home in my own land after 20 years. But no more tears and lamentation, for I have news to tell you, and there is need for haste.
Oh my God, I'm crying.
I have killed that gang of suitors in our palace. I have taken revenge for their bitter insults and all their crimes.
Laertes answered him,
If you who have come here really are my son Odysseus home again, give me some definite proof to convince me.
To begin with,
the quick-witted Odysseus said,
look at this scar, where I was wounded by the white tusk of a boar when I went to Parnassus. You and my mother had sent me to my grandfather, Autolycus, to fetch the gifts he solemnly promised when he came to visit us. Then again I can tell you all the trees you gave me one day on this terraced garden. I was only a little boy at the time, trotting after you through the orchard, asking about this and that. And as we wound our way through these very trees, you told me all their names. You gave me 13 pear trees, 10 apple trees, and 40 fig trees, and at the same time you pointed out the 50 rows of vines that were to be mine. Each ripened at a different time, so that the bunches on them were at various stages of ripeness as the seasons of Zeus weighed down their branches.
Oh, I actually had tears in my eyes coming out of them. At these words, Laertes' knees gave way and his heart melted, for he recognized the positive proof given by Odysseus. He flung his arms round the neck of his beloved son. Oh, I'm going again. And patient good Odysseus clasped him fainting to his breast. When his breath came back and he returned to consciousness, he said to his son,
By Father Zeus, you gods are still there on high Olympus if those suitors have really paid the price for their outrageous insolence. But in my heart I have a horrible fear now that all the people of Ithaca will soon be on us here, and that they will send urgent messages for help to every town in Cephalonia.
Have no fear,
said his resourceful son,
and do not feel anxious about that. But come with me to the farmhouse here by the orchard. I sent Telemachus ahead with the cowman and swineherd to prepare a meal as quickly as they could.
When they had finished talking, the two set out, and in the pleasant, well-built farmhouse, they found Telemachus and the two herdsmen carving lavish portions of meat and mixing the sparkling wine. His Sicilian maidservant bathed the great-hearted Laertes in his room and rubbed him with oil and put a cloak around him. Athene came and filled out the limbs of this shepherd of his people, making him seem taller and sturdier than before, so that as he stepped out of the bath, his own son was amazed to see him looking like an immortal god.
Father,
he exclaimed, and his words were winged.
I'm sure one of the immortal gods has made you handsomer and taller than ever.
To which the thoughtful Laertes replied,
By Father Zeus, Athenian Apollo, if only I could have been the man I was when, as king of the Civilisations, I took the stronghold of Myricus on the mainland cape, and like that have stood by you yesterday in our palace, with armour on my shoulders, and beaten off those suitors. I'd have laid many of them low in the halls and delighted your heart.
So they talked together, and the others finished their task of preparing the meal. They took their places on seats and chairs, and were helping themselves to food, when the old man Dolius came in with his sons, weary after their work. They had been called in by their mother, the old Sicilian woman, who looked after them and lovingly cared for their old father, now that his years sat heavily upon him. When they set eyes on Odysseus and realized who he was, they stopped short in amazement. Odysseus joked pleasantly with them as he greeted them.
Old man,
He said,
sit down to your lunch, and all of you stop looking so amazed. We have been longing to get our hands on the food in here, waiting all this time and expecting you every minute.
Dolius ran up with outstretched arms, seized Odysseus by the hand, and kissed him on the wrist.
You have come back to us, my dear master,
He said, with words that had wings.
and fulfilled our dearest wishes. We had given up hope, but the gods have led you back. Greetings and welcome home, and may the gods shower their blessings on you. But tell me this, for I am anxious. Has the wise Penelope heard of your arrival here, or shall we send someone to tell her?
She knows already, my old friend.
Resourceful Odysseus answered.
Why must you concern yourself with that?
Dolius sat down again on his polished stool, and now it was his son's turn to gather round the famous Odysseus, welcome him, and clasp his hand. Then they all took their seats by Dolius their father. So they busied themselves with their meal in the farmhouse. But Rumour, the messenger, flew rapidly through the town with the fateful news of the suitor's hideous death. When the people heard it, with one accord they gathered from all sides in front of Odysseus' palace, with wailing and lamentation. They carried out the corpses, and each group buried their dead. The corpses from other towns were put on ships and sent home in the care of the crews. Grieving, they made their way in a body to the meeting place, and there, when they were all duly gathered, Eupithes rose to address them. His heart was heavy with inconsolable grief for his son Antinous, the asshole, the first of the great Odysseus' victims.
Friends,
He began, weeping for his son.
what terrible harm this man has done to us Achaeans. He sailed away, taking many of our fine young men in his hollow ships. But he lost his ships, he lost his men, and now on his return he has killed the best of the Civilisations. Quick, now, before he can escape to Pylos or to sacred Elis, where the Epeans rule, let us make a move, or our shame will last forever. We shall be disgraced, even in the eyes of generations yet unborn, if we do not avenge ourselves on the murderers of our sons and brothers. I, for one, should find no further pleasure in living, but should prefer to die and join the dead. Let us make a move, or they may be across the seas before we can stop them.
His tears and words stirred all his countrymen to pity, but at this moment Medon and the divine minstrel appeared. On waking they had come straight from the palace, and now took their stand in the centre of the assembly. Everyone was amazed, but the wise Medon spoke out.
Listen, fellow Ithacans. It was not against the will of the deathless gods that Odysseus carried out his plans. With my own eyes, I saw an immortal who looked exactly like Mentor standing at his side, and this immortal was at one moment ahead of Odysseus, cheering him on, and at the next storming through the hall, striking terror into the suitors. They fell in heaps.
At these words the blood drained from their cheeks, and now the hero, old Halitherses, master's son, was the only man there who could look into the future as well as into the past, rose up to give them some well-meant advice.
Ithacans,
He cried,
listen to what I have to say.
Your own stupidity, my friends, is to blame for what has happened. You would not listen to me or to Mentor, the shepherd of the people, when we urged you to check your sons in their career of folly. They were guilty of a great wrong, because they wickedly abandoned all standards of civilized behavior, plundering the estate and insulting the wife of our greatest man, whom they counted on never seeing here again. Be persuaded by me, let us not make a move, or I fear that some of you may bring doom on your heads.
At the end of his speech, some of them remained where they were, but more than half leaped to their feet with loud war cries, rejecting his advice, and following that of Eupathes, the great persuader. They rushed to arms, equipped themselves with their gleaming bronze, and mustered outside the spacious town. Eupathes in his folly took command. He saw himself avenging his son's death, though he was never to come back alive, but was to meet his fate in that very place. It was now that Athene said to Zeus, "Father of ours, son of Cronos, king of kings, answer my question and say what thoughts are hidden in your heart. Will you further this strife with its horrors and turmoil, or establish peace between the two sides?" To this, Zeus the cloud-gatherer replied,
My child, why come to me with such questions? Was it not your own idea that Odysseus should return and avenge himself on his enemies? Act as you please, but I will tell you the best way, since the noble Odysseus has had his revenge on the suitors. Let them make a treaty of peace to establish him as king in perpetuity, and let us wipe from their minds the memory of the slaughter of sons and brothers. Let them be friends as before, and let peace and plenty prevail.
"Wait, so you're going to make a whole load of people just forget that they ever had sons?" With this encouragement from Zeus, Athene, who had already set her heart on action, flashed down at once from the peaks of Olympus. In the farmhouse, after they had enjoyed a satisfying meal, the patient good Odysseus said,
Will one of you go and see whether they aren't close to us already?
At his bidding, one of Dolius' sons jumped up and went to the threshold. Standing there, he saw them all quite close and called to Odysseus with words that flew, "They are on us! Quick, to arms!" Whereupon they leaped up and put on their armour, Odysseus and the three with him, and Dolius' 6 sons. Laertes and Dolius, grey-headed though they were, also armed themselves, warriors by necessity. When all were clad in gleaming bronze, they opened the gates and went out, Odysseus leading. They were now joined by Athene, daughter of Zeus, who had assumed Mentor's appearance and voice. The patient, good Odysseus was overjoyed to see her. He turned at once to his dear son and said,
Telemachus, when you find yourself in the thick of battle, where the best men prove their mettle, you will soon learn how not to disgrace your father's house. In all the world there has been none like ours for courage and manliness.
And the thoughtful Telemachus replied, "If you care to, father, you will see me in my present mood by no means disgracing my father's house, as you put it." Laertes was delighted.
Dear gods,
He exclaimed,
what a day this is to warm my heart. My son and grandson competing in valour.
"Don't be too delighted by it." Athene of the flashing eyes came up to him now and said,
Laertes, son of Arceisius, dearest of all my friends, pray to the Lady of the Flashing Eyes and to Father Zeus, then quickly poise your long spear and throw it.
As she spoke, Pallas Athene breathed vigour into him, and he immediately poised his long spear with a prayer to the daughter of the great Zeus, and threw it. He struck Eupathes on the bronze cheek guard of his helmet. The helmet failed to stop the spear. The bronze point pierced clean through, and with a clang of armour, Eupathes crashed to the ground. Then Odysseus and his illustrious son attacked the front rank of the enemy, and struck them with their swords and double-pointed spears. They would have destroyed them all, and seen that none went home alive if Athene, daughter of Aegis-bearing Zeus, had not raised a great cry and checked the whole throng. "Ithacans, stop this disastrous fight and separate at once before blood is shed." "But blood has already been shed." At Athene's cry, the colour drained from their cheeks. In terror at the sound of her voice, they let their weapons drop from their hands to the ground. Then they turned and made for the city for dear life. The much-enduring good Odysseus raised a terrifying war cry, gathered himself together, and pounced on them like a swooping eagle. But at this moment Zeus flung a flaming thunderbolt, which fell in front of the bright-eyed daughter of that formidable sire. Athene called out to Odysseus, "Odysseus, favourite of Zeus, resourceful son of Laertes, hold your hand. Stop fighting your countrymen, in case you incur the wrath of Zeus the Thunderer." Odysseus obeyed her, and his heart rejoiced. Then Pallas Athene, daughter of aegis-bearing Zeus, still using mental form and voice for her disguise, established peace between the two sides. And that is the end of the book. Thank you for joining me.